Mayor Fingal, Mary McCamley, will be on her way towards the end of the event, and the founder of Dress for Success, Sonia Lennon, is here with us today. This event was as a result of long discussions with our colleagues in the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection and our local NTRIO office, especially with Siobhan Lawler, Niamh Kelly, Vaughan and their team, Paula Moyles, Patricia Swords and their team. And we also have an Empower cross-programme working group, and I have to say everyone did a really exceptional job in putting this event together at the DEASP. And I think it's fair to say the hard graft was really worth it. So just what we're going to do today, the Minister is going to formally launch our One Step Closer programme. Then Sonia Lennon is going to have a little chat with our special guests. We have 3 people here today who will talk about their experience through the Local Employment Service, the COOS scheme and Community Employment Scheme. And I really think that this conversation will show us the value of these supports and the impact of getting the right help at the right time when you're looking for a job. So now I'm going to ask the Minister to formally launch the One Step Closer initiative. This initiative starts today here by bringing all of the services in the community together, but it will continue further into the future with more collaborations with DEASP, ETB and of course Dress for Success. So join me in welcoming the Minister. Thank you.
Good morning everybody. Thank you. Well, first of all, welcome to Councillor Dennison, Mayor Mary, who's not here yet but she'll be here in a second, Adelaine, Sonia, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here today, and actually I knew what I was coming to, but I absolutely never expected for the buzz that's in this room to be as buzzy as it actually is this morning. The atmosphere here is absolutely electric, and it's all down to the people who have come today, so I want to say thank you for coming. If we look back 10 years, 2008, for a lot of people seems like an absolute lifetime ago, a generation ago, and yet for other people it seems like it was only yesterday, because we all remember Ireland in that time period was at the early stages of what was to be some of the most difficult economic years and difficult emotional years for Irish people that we have ever seen for generations. And unemployment in 2008 was 6.5%, and I think we all know during those horrible years it rose to just under 16%. And they were real normal Irish people that live in normal communities that lost a much valued job. And the only thing I'm so grateful for is that actually the recovery, which was jobs led, has actually happened so quickly, and that last month we're back down to sub 6% figures, which is an absolute credit to organisations like Empower and all of the people that you're here meeting today. So I just want to acknowledge and respect that. I think the collapse had a huge human impact. I think the drastic drop in the economy was felt by families, it was felt in their homes, it was impacted by businesses and their work, and I think it's fair to say that during those very difficult years, and I'd say a lot of people, but actually I think we can genuinely talk about hundreds of thousands of people really struggled to see any hope in the future. And I think what's lovely today is to see that as a nation we have re-grasped that hope. I think the country is full of emotion obviously in the last week because of events that have happened recently, but actually far wider than that. People genuinely do have hope now. People who have regained employment are putting their lives back together, having been out of work for a difficult number of years. But I think despite all of the good news, and there is plenty to spread around, and don't be shy, politicians like me and Kieran and Mary will tell you that there's loads of good news to spread around. I think we still do need to acknowledge that we have a lot of work still left to do. Because long-term unemployment, for me, as the lead person in this department, is still far too high. It's still stubbornly high. And I think what it does is address the significant gaps between people who are in long-term unemployment over here and the workforce over here, which thankfully is growing, and we have jobs fairs and jobs clubs that are telling us that they have lots and lots of jobs and maybe not so many people coming to take up those jobs, and that tells me there's a very big gap in the middle. And that's the gap that we have to address between now, next month, the next budget, the next cycle, the next year. And that gap will be filled by organisations like Empower, by COOS, by CE, by all of our host companies, by our CV clubs, by our jobs clubs, by all of the community empowering services that we have up and down the country, working on a one-to-one basis to recognise what the individual barriers to work are for people who have been long-term unemployed and matching them with employment. And those barriers are different for everybody because none of us are the same. And for some of us it might be that we've took time out of the workforce to have a couple of babies and to stay at home, and then we're just simply lacking in confidence. For some of us it might be social anxiety, for some of us it might be mental health issues, for some of us it might be just that you don't have the right skills for the right jobs and we just need to match those skills. And I think there has to be a lifelong learning programme that's supported by organisations like Empower to make sure that people are continuously supported right through their career. And I think times are also changing. It isn't a case of where, in my parents' generation days, you get a job at 16 or 17 and stay in that job. And my dad worked in the SB all his life. He stayed in the job till he was 65 and he retired. Those days are nearly gone for most people. Now we all have a couple of careers during the life working span that we have. And I think what's important to recognise is that in order to have a couple of successful careers, you need to be able to retrain, reskill, have re-interest. And we all have different changes in personalities during our lifetimes, and what's good for you in your 20s isn't good for you in your 40s. But I think the support services that we have has to recognise every single individual's needs and every single individual's requirements, and to be able to tailor supports around those individual needs. I think we all know that a well-paid job is probably, well actually it's absolutely the best route out of poverty into prosperity, and I think there's no welfare payment that can ever compete nor should ever compete with a well-paid job. And I think that's why the mantra in our department, and that it kind of seamlessly runs through all of the supports and services that we offer from the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection, is that we're not just interested in getting somebody a job. We did work in the last number of weeks about reducing sub-minimum rates and sub-trading rates, because what we want to do is in the first instance get somebody a decent job with a decent wage. But that's only the beginning, because what we want to do is to get a job, and then a better job, and a career thereafter, and then maybe thereafter a couple of careers. And it's those entire spectrum of supports that are empowered and employed by organisations like we're here today to celebrate with the One Step Closer programme. They're the type of supports that are required over lifelong careers for people. We need to make sure that whatever it is and whatever time of your life, the supports that you require to make sure that you have a successful career in whatever it is that you choose are available to you from the state. I think to achieve this ambition, events like today are extremely important. In facilitating discussion directly between job seekers and supported employment and training schemes, I think this is a strong example of the efforts that your government is making to invest in Irish people, in their careers, and in the supports that we offer to you. And I think it's placement services like TUS, like CE, like local employment services, it's like our jobs clubs and Jurez, all of who are here today. So I'll encourage you, if you haven't already gone around all of the stalls today, go and meet as many people as you can today. It's these investments through our social inclusion funding, which is almost €2.5 million that's being invested in communities such as Blanchardstown and the wider community of the entire Fingal. I think we're also going to provide incentives to employers like Jobs Plus, like the wage subsidy scheme, to make sure that they actively target and recruit people who are on the long-term employment registers, and also in particular people with disabilities is what we call them, but actually our programme is called Ability, because everybody has an ability to do something, and what we need to do is to empower people who have different abilities than others to be supported in the workforce, and I think our Ability programme is going to do that exceptionally well, and I'll be fighting for more money to make sure that we expand that next year. I'm very shortly going to be launching what we're calling the YES scheme. We were supposed to launch it before last Friday's campaign, but I didn't want to get it confused between anything else that was going on, but it's our Youth Employment Support Scheme. I'm not happy that the largest number of people unemployed at the moment are under 25, because these are the most gifted, enthusiastic and talented people that we have in the country, and they are the future careerists and the future supporters of the entire system that we depend on. I need to ensure that young people, if they are not in training, that they are empowered and specifically targeted to be in employment. We're going to incentivise workers to take on these people who may not have the right skills, but definitely have the right ambition, the right aim.